and salutations to all the elders who are here. Thank you so much to all the participants for joining with us for yet another The Wire session. This is our ninth The Wire session. All the librarians, researchers, and everyone from the knowledge and research fraternity, thank you so much for joining us once again. I'm Dr. Shriparna Samanta, working as Manager Relationships Academic and Corporate with Team Balani Infotech. So, the WIRE webinar or International Resources with Expert is a series of webinars which is the initiative by our CEO and visionary Mr. Kailash Balani. We at Balani Infotech are serving the knowledge and research fraternity with the resources of their need from many past decades. And as a service provider to this community, as our social, ethical, and moral duty towards all of them, we thought of doing something more. So, taking this thought a step forward, we have created this platform, The Wire. Over this platform, we call different experts from different fields and try to provide valuable information for a much broader audience. So this will be our ninth The Wire session. Previous to this, we have conducted sessions on importance of archival contents, library transition during this pandemic situation, and on many different topics. So on behalf of Balani Infotech, I welcome you all for this very informative session on the topic content marketing and indispensable aspect of research visibility. Before starting the session, I would like to mention some of the ground rules. If anybody drops out of the session, then please join us back on the same link. We are live with our session right now over Facebook, and YouTube link for the session will be shared with you all after the session. And anytime you can always visit our social media channels for all the updates. After the talk, we will open the question and answer section via chat box where participants can ask their questions to our panelists and speakers, keynote speaker. And the most exciting part of the today's session will be our quiz part. The link for the quiz will be shared by our team once we are done with the question and answer section for today. And we will be announcing three winners and who all will be getting Amazon gift card. E-certificate will be provided to the participants within 15 working days after the session. So for today's this exciting session on content marketing, we have with us our keynote speaker, Dr. Shantanu Ganguly, Chief Librarian, B.B. Dikshit Library, All India of Medical Sciences, AIMS, New Delhi. We have our guest speaker, Sabine. She is the founder and CEO of SciencePod, one of the exclusive product for content solutions. We have our panelist with us, Dr. Rama Patnaik ma'am, University Librarian, IIM Bangalore. Dr. Lata Suresh ma'am, Head Knowledge Research Center, Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, IICA Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Dr. Pramod Dalvi from Sudarshan Chemicals, Pune. So we all have to agree on this current point that in today's world, how important content marketing is. It plays a very vital role to reach the targeted market. Previously, we all had a notion in our mind that content marketing is a niche area only for the big corporates. But the changing time, we all have realized that content marketing is an indispensable part of every field, whether it's research, whether it's for authors, for startup, and even for the libraries. So for further explanation on this, we will be having discussion. We will listen to our guest speaker with all the content solution that they have to enhance the visibility of research. So now, without wasting much more time, I would like to introduce Dr. Shantanu Ganguly. Though he's a very well-known personality and needs no introduction, still I would like to give a brief intro about Shantanu sir. Dr. Shantanu Ganguly is currently working as Chief Librarian in AIMS, New Delhi. He has his PhD degree in marketing of special library services. He has his expertise in knowledge and information management, project and client management, skills with demonstrated in capacity development, resource management, and reporting. Before joining AIMS, he was working with IIM Lucknow as a librarian, monitored overall management and administration of both Lucknow and Noida branches, and accomplished major assignments including planning, development, and administration of the entire library system, and much more. Previous to that, he was associated with reputed institutes like IILM and TERI. He is an expert in imparting training and support programs for team and partners for knowledge management tools, document management, workflow, process management, knowledge transfer and exchange technology, or other learning material. He holds the distinction of conceptualization and implementing the capability development program and working towards making the organization more effective and productive. His expertise in conducting profound research and generalizing value content and managing the same to accomplish desired organizational goals. Now, without much ado, I would like to invite Dr. Shantanu Ganguly, sir, to take over our virtual podium. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sriparna, for thank you, Balani Infotech, for inviting me to deliver this keynote address. I'm extremely thankful to Kailasji. Please give my regards to him. I don't know whether he's there or not. But certainly, this is a very good initiative that Balani has started with the called the Wire. Really, it is basically connecting the dots with the wire. That's what I would say, and very thematic areas. And I'm also thankful and give my regards to all my fellow panelists. I have my friends like Dr. Rama is here, Dr. Lata Suresh is here, and Dr. Pramod Dalvi. I think we met somewhere, but I'm unable to recognize. But many of my fellow members are all here. Like Nitin Joshi has joined just now. I know many of them. Many of their from their professions and all. I know many of them. So the session which I'm going to do is today is. Well, this is a very, let me share my screen first. I think just let me know whether you can see it or not. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible. It's visible.
Okay. So, well, Sriparna has given a very tough task to me to, look into a particular session, which is called content marketing, an indispensable aspect for research visibility. In fact, I requested Sriparna that immediately after this meeting, I have to rush for another meeting, which is actually on this area only, where I have to go. I'm a part of the core committee of a research visibility I have to look into, where content is obviously. Now, first of all, I would like to say that this is a very, very important area which you have done. Now, content marketing is an extremely important aspect in today's context, whereas when I look at, I will be talking more on a research perspective, because in AIMS also I am into my part of the, I'm working very closely on the research area, as well as in my previous institution like Terry, where I was working very closely with the research domain only. So I think this slogan is very common to all of you, that content is king and the context is queen. So in my knowledge, my terms, I would say there is a very simple word which I think it is ruling this entire world. It's called CCT. When I talk about content, context, and technology is the platform. Just take an example of a WhatsApp. We all of us are every day in the morning we are writing, or every day, every night we are writing. That is, we are writing a content there. When we are writing it to somebody on a group or something, so there is a purpose, there is a context is there. And what is that technology? Technology is nothing but the entire platform which is there. So there are several kinds of technology are there in the market. Now, when I look at the entire from a research angle and the topic which you have given to us, content marketing and the research content. Well, content here, word is a commonality here, which is a very common word. But I think what we are trying to, whatever be the research output is there, we need to take it to our stakeholders. So how do we do that? How people come to know globally that there is a research has been done on XYZ area. So how they come to know. And since Sriparna is from a nanobiotechnology area, so she would be knowing this much better. Now, let me give you a very snapshot of the entire market background. What is exactly happening is today. There is a rise in the R&D spend, continues increasing from 400 billion in 1990 to 1.4 trillion in 2012, and now it is projected to 2.3 trillion by 2030. So this is I've taken it from a report. This is not my concorded data. One of the important component is basically the allocate the funding and the research ROI index. There is a research intensive institutions are operating in a highly competitive environment and are under increasing pressure to demonstrate their significance on a global scale. Securing and maintaining the funding from the government bodies and private funders means a detailed and onerous submission, renewal and renewals process and all. There is a high impact research is in a complete demand, and institution need to do a lot of productive collaborations, and the tools are required for information necessary to cultivate successfully these collaborations with industry and international institutions and all. Because I come from a research background of Terry, where I have seen that I was involved in several research projects with multilateral bilateral organizations with the governments. In fact, there was a very interesting project I was doing with Research Council for UK government, where they have very pragmatically they have taken out, in fact that report was published and it is available in the open domain also, that which are the vital areas where the research should take place. In fact, funding doesn't mean that it is going to be given openly. No, where exactly the funding is required, where exactly the innovation is taking place. So we need to understand all those important areas, and then only we can have we can say that there is a requirement for a research is required for that particular area and all. So now when I do the understanding the innovation, understanding your organization's competency is very important. Find out what are the emerging opportunities are there, get insight into performance and institutional drivers of success, and end-to-end solution for creation, management and analysis of research information. Get a full view of the research output and faculty achievements combined with global benchmarking to understand the organization's competencies and emerging opportunities in the research landscape. So these are some of the understanding of the innovations which is required. Now, so we need to bridge the gap. We, on one hand, we have the funding organizations, and the other hand, we have the stakeholders. But the most important thing is we need to bridge the gap. And that bridging the gap, the funding organizations are asking for what is the impact, what kind of impact, what kind of efficacy you have done when you are doing a research, what was the outcome. So that's very important to understand. So we need to develop a research strategy, we need to have a benchmarking and the analytics. So I'll touch upon some of the things because these are all very debatable issue, and I am sure my esteemed panel members are going to debate on more on these areas, but I'll touch upon some of the very important areas. Now, if I look at from a research landscape point of view, and here you can see that you have the research profiles owned and edited, where you have the university profile, Orchid profile, Google Scholar profile, Research ISOs profile. You have the citation and the metrics. So there's a huge number of models are available today for to look into the citation and the metric sources. You have the different kinds of identifiers. In fact, when I am doing sessions with all my researchers in I was doing it in Terry, and now in AIMS also I will be doing it. Like, there are not only the Orchid ID number, but there are several types of international ID numbers where one researcher can easily bring out a connectivity with another researcher. So that can easily be done. And there is a repositories. So there is an importance of institutional repositories today. There is an importance of subject repository. There is a very important thing which is coming up in a big way. In every organization, it is in great demand, that is on data repository. And there should be a data management resources. And there is a n number of publishing platforms also. So there is one way the people are providing all kinds of support to all the researchers to not only to produce the research, but also to disseminate the research. That's what is most important thing in today's context. So if I look at the research workflow management, say for example, like we subscribe to Web of Science. So how is your organization achieving its goals? So you need to plan a strategy. You have to obtain a funding. You have to conduct the research. You have to publish the findings. You have to promote the output, and you have to assess the results. Now, how do you know if faculty are pursuing novel topics or not? Is your institution missing the opportunities? Is there any topic is left out which has not been touched upon? Are students and faculty using the best available research? Are you collaboratively, effectively working together with maybe an X organizations in London or Y organization in Germany or Z organizations in US? Is your institution's open access policies working? Are you well positioned to negotiate transformative agreements with the publishers? How do you demonstrate your institution's value to your stakeholders? How well does your institution capitalize on research that has a commercial potential? So some of this research workflow management, and these are some of the very fundamental questions we need to address. So few solutions are available, like for example, Web of Science. I'm sure all of you are aware of it. There is something called as Publons, where get your research and scholarly contributions noticed by publishers, peers, and the world at large. Then you have the journal citation reports. JCR is very popular, which is a part of the Web of Science. Please don't mistake me that I subscribe to Web of Science, that I'm taking every example of Web of Science or Springer or thingy, but some of their reports I have consulted. So these are some of the part of their reports only. EndNote, ESI research reports, insights, benchmarking and analytics. It is giving a beautiful, the institution's research output, which against the peers, you can have the identify the collaborators, you can assess your departments, the different kinds of areas which are in great importance. Essential science indicators are there, like identifying emerging science trends as well as influential individuals. And then Copernio is basically the quickly accessing the millions of high quality research papers with a single mouse. So it's a open access domain which is available there. So please understand, context is also very crucial. Now, citation rates vary among fields. There is always a debate on the citation rates. Now, a good or an average H index for a researcher in mathematics will be very different from an average H index for a biochemistry researcher. So you cannot start comparing that we have a very high H index in mathematics and we have a very low index in biochemistry. No, we cannot do that comparisons. Probably it can be compared with the similar subject areas. Benchmarking and analytical indicators, where you have the productivity and impact, you can measure. You can go for a normalization, like for a category, the normalized citation impact, categorize the expected citations. You can have the top performance, the percentage of documents in top percent, in that top percentage. Scientific collaboration, like industry collaborations and all, international collaborations, and the JIF documents. So these are some of the things which are the benchmarking and analytic indicators which you can have a look at it. A new definition of the research visibility is discover, engage, and impact. Asking the right questions, finding information, and finding the theoretical solutions, engage, exchanging knowledge, understanding, and resources in a reciprocal context, impact, the contributions that researchers make to the world and lives of the people living it. So that's a new definition of research visibility, is very, very important, is very, very important. Researchers are at the center. So content discoverability and visibility is very, very important. And that is where actually the content marketing comes into the picture. I'm not using the commercial word marketing here. I'm looking at it from a different perspective. There is a paradigm shift in scholarly communication, like communicating scholarly research is really static, yet in recent years, it has the landscape in which research is carried out and communicated has shifted dramatically. The volume of published research continues to increase annually. Easy access to peer-reviewed articles like preprints, data sets, peer review reports is ever more important for further discovery and enriching the academic record. We have seen how the profile of an open access publishing has increased through, like for example, there is a very interesting project called Project Deal in Germany. Now the COVID-19 pandemic has provided a further push to many of these trends and has ensured that the fast publication of reliable and robust results and made it way in the political and public agenda while accelerating new remote ways. In fact, Just now I was editing an article where there was a refereed article came to me where somebody has done an incredible work that to see that how the COVID-19, the different research area, research dimensions in globally as well as in India, how that thing is coming up. So I was doing it for my previous journal, that is World Digital Library. There is a benefit for the libraries. Entitlement recognition is improved through the use of research profiles, IP identification, and all. Library users have an additional validated place where they can access the version of record on which to build their own research. Researcher insights into content usage are provided, enabling both partners and libraries to learn more about researchers' requirement. And there is a benefit for the researchers also. Articles are brought directly to researchers on a platform. A very interesting platform I came across. Once again, I'm not canvassing any particular product, but there is a very interesting platform I came across which is called as Digital Commons. They already use for networking and collaborative purpose because they have created such kind of features. It was developed by Elsevier. Researchers can be sure that they are accessing the viewer of an article rather than a previous draft or unauthorized version. And the discoverability of articles on ResearchGate is improved, make it easier for researchers to find the relevant content. It's also benefit for the authors on publication, like for example, Springer Nature. Once again, I'm not canvassing Springer Nature here. Automatically sends the version of the record to ResearchGate, who automatically upload it to their publication page so that the authors do not need to do this themselves. And the Springer Nature content that is syndicated to ResearchGate shows that increase the reach or the usage and the discoverability can easily be found out. The partnership removes the need for authors to upload drafts or to worry about the breaching possible licensing agreements by uploading the viewer to ResearchGate and all. So, lot of benefits nowadays are provided to the authors, to the researchers to increase the visibility. Lot of tools, technologies are available, both priced as well as free version also. There is a way to increase the research visibility. Quickly, I'll look into it. One of them is the promote your researchers to in the conferences. There is an n number of conference takes place. So for conferences are a great opportunity to promote yourself and your research work. Even if you are not presenting your work, you can use the conference as an opportunity to meet other researchers and start to develop your own research network. You can start creating your own research network. Keep an eye out for names of the researchers you would like to meet and practice introducing yourself and your research. You may also have a few minutes to make sure that you are prepared for this. So promoting, research. So there is a one more is there, carefully selecting the journal. Where here, I think all librarians play a very, very important role. And I keep on, getting a lot of questions, lot of requests on this. I have read, one researcher comes to me in the morning and says, I have written an article. Can you suggest me which journal will be suitable for this? So you need to do a lot of hand holding. Publishing a right article in a right journal is our job. And that is how we can do the hand holding and we can help them out on that particular aspect. So one of the important component from a researcher's point of view, I think we need to think, we need to check, and then we need to submit. It is just now that you keep on, submitting an articles and all like that. Sign up for an Orchid ID. It is very, very important. Having an Orchid ID can help to make your research more visible. Orchid is a digital identifier and that helps to distinguish you from other researchers. You can link all your research outputs to your Orchid. You can keep it throughout your career. It is particularly useful for researchers with common names who change their name throughout their career or who change institutions. No matter what changes are made, you will always have the same Orchid. So other people can easily see details of your research outputs. In fact, when I was working with Terry with some of the multilateral, bilateral organization, it is mandatory, I'm using the word mandatory, that when you are applying for a funding, if the team leader doesn't have an Orchid ID, then your marks would be cut out. And it was there. So many times I had to help a lot of my researchers to create their Orchid ID. And the similar thing also I'm doing here also. We'll be organizing a lot of workshops, how to create, because Orchid ID is basically connecting the research and the researchers together. That's very, very important. Make your research an open access. In fact, there is a lot of debate on these areas. I'm not getting into those things. But open access, there are different kinds of models are available in the open access. So because it gives you more exposure to work, practitioners can apply the findings. It has a high citation rates because it is open. So more and more people from the across the globe, they can get into it, even if they are not subscribing to it. Your research can influence the policy, compliant with the grant rules. That is what I mentioned. Taxpayers get a value for money, and researchers in developing countries can see your work. So there is a lot of importance of making your research in open access domain. Share your research data. There is a growing evidence that sharing the data can increase the visibility of the research. And sharing your data could allow other researchers to validate your work, build upon it, could potentially help to open up future collaboration opportunities, learn more about managing and sharing your data on your research data management pages. Promote your research online. Well, this is a very, very important thing. Promoting your research online will help you reach your potential audience, connect with other researchers, and help you to start developing a network of online colleagues. There are a number of different social media tools such as Twitter, Instagram, blogs, and LinkedIn, where easily you can get connected to your like-minded people. Whichever tool you use, it is important to identify who is your audience. Engage with them by asking questions, speaking up about issues that interest you, and use catching images, videos, or visualizations. You don't need to spend a long time keeping your social media accounts up to date, but you need to be willing to write and check your accounts regularly. Probably you can create some kind of a calendar, social media calendar, where you can do keep a track of everything. Track when your research is being used. Keeping up to date with who is discussing, citing, or sharing your research is very important. Let me tell you, this August gathering, that in my current this particular section, I have this particular work I have to do on a regular basis, and it helps me a lot. You can use this type of information on CVs and when applying for funding or jobs. To check who is citing your work, you can look at your articles on sites such as Web of Science, Scopus, Google Scholar, and all. If you are an early career researcher, it may be more appropriate to use Ultrametrics. Ultrametrics looks at who is talking and sharing your research on places such as social media, in new outlets, and all those things, and on Course Alibi also. This is a very interesting as far as the topic is concerned, like content marketing and research discoverability or research visibility. I came across this particular diagram where any innovations this was developed by our library guides, and on research visibility, our library guide came out. There are, I think, some fundamental areas they have looked into. One of that is you writing, where you can see what are the kinds of tools you can use it. You can see the number of tools are available. If you want to publish your publications, you have a n number of portals for that. If you do the outreach, you can see there is a n number of there. Assessment, if you want to do, like for example, you want to measure whether what is the impact rate of your research paper or a research output, and then the new discovery also. So this is a tool, in a ecosystem where these fundamental 6 areas have been identified, which are directly linked to the topic which we are going to debate today. That is content marketing vis-a-vis the research discoverability and the research visibility. So it is very, very important for this. I also came across this a very fundamental diagram by IWH who has come up. This is under Creative Commons, that how we measure the impact. The measurement of impact is guided by this is a research impact model they have developed, and it is very simple, but a very fundamental model they have used. This model recognizes that the immediate outcomes of a research, such as journal articles, research summaries, media mentions, and are fairly easy to track. And however, the intermediate and the longer term outcomes of the research, that is policy, practical changes, practice changes, eventually result in improved outcomes, are difficult to track. So this is, you can say that from one initial phase to the project, I mean, research capacity to final outcome, there is an entire journey. Entire journey is there, and for each journey, each vertical, there are important components have been laid out. So you as a researcher, you need to find out which one you want to choose, the easy one or the hard one, which is more on statistical based and all. So it is complete, and now it's a very interesting, in fact, the research paper was completely given on this area. I already mentioned that social networks for the researchers is coming up in a very, very big way. Like, for example, academic edu is there to share your academic research output. Mendeley is already there, and the ResearchGate. In fact, Van Noorden is one of the very top scientists on a very online journal. He has published a huge research paper. I would urge the entire gamut to go through that paper and see that how social network bandwidth can be an useful component for the entire research community. So this is a very, very important area. And so there is but we need to understand there is a pros and cons of the social networks also. Let us look at the pros first. More visibility when you have several profiles in different services and archive your articles in several places. However, remember the self-archiving comes first. Interactive features such as follow one's colleague, getting followed by them, discussion opportunity, possibilities for feedback, possibility to comment on an article. Like, for example, let me give an example. One of my very close friend, whenever any particular article, I really get astonished whenever he does any important article, when it is get published in international refereed journal or so, immediately what he does, he puts it on a Facebook, he puts that article in a LinkedIn, and you get n number of comments on that. And that is where the impact is. Some of the people, they say, I am working on these areas, I also want to use particular sector methodology from your research paper only. I think you have done a great thing. That's where your impact is. Academic social networks are not open access repositories. So these are the cons part. One has to register. One has to register for it in order to download and the articles, unlike in non-commercial open repositories. Social network services are commercial enterprises which may change without a warning. So you don't know what will change, what kind of change will take place. When you upload your article to these services, you are not given the possibility to determine that whether the subsequent use of your articles with licenses, they are not given in persistent identifiers also. Upload your article to a non-commercial open repository, such as, very interesting is called Helda, or self-archiving like Tuhat or Zenodo. So you can use on those platforms also for doing your for uploading your articles. So there are, before I end, so there is an enormous increase in the number of publications in any field. Means it is more difficult for a researcher to keep track of recent publications. For an author, it means that it is more important to make you as an author stand out from the rest and give your publication more visibility. So they won't overlook. Here are some tips on how to do it and archive your articles so that they are available in the open digital repository. In fact, I'm addressing to my researchers actually on this. So always use the same version consistently throughout your career. In addition, like for example, as far as the Orchid ID is concerned, some people they change the names and are suddenly, they are unable to, get connectivity to that. And in fact, I am constantly, rehearsing with the people, my researchers, to tell them that you have to follow a consistency. Register for an Orchid ID or a research ID in order to be more easily identified. Use the persistent like DOI, URN. Use a standardized institutional affiliation and address. Create a Google Scholar author profile. Join social networks for researchers like ResearchGate, academic.edu, LinkedIn, etc. When you self-archive your articles, be sure to tag your paper with keywords and subject classifications so those can be found better. Mere title is not enough. Utilize social bookmarking with Mendeley, Zotero, or SiteUlike. Collaborate with researchers in other institutions. Consider communicating information about your research via Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. And create a blog when you can showcase your research and respond to any feedback you receive, whether it is positive or negative. So these are few commandments which I would like to share with all of you. So please remember from my talk, one thing is for sure, that librarian have to play a very, very pragmatic role, both in your content marketing as well as his research visibility. Probably one researcher is finding it a strenuous way to excel by climbing the staircase one by one. But it is the role of the librarian to show the easiest way by using the appropriate technology. So librarian's role has to play a very, very important role in this area. I think that is how the future librarianship is coming up in a big way with the new technologies. And I mean, people have to come up on these things. So for that, I would also say constantly with your team, with not only your team members, please take your team members also with you every time you cannot lead, but there should be a process in place where you constantly do the learning and development for your team members as well as your stakeholders. It should be continuous process. A learning and development is a very, very, on each and every, maybe 5 people are joining, but please do it for 5 people only, because that 5 people will transmit the knowledge to 50 people. So it is, and it has to be a continuous process. It is not like once in a blue moon you are doing it. So it is very important to carry out with a learning and development process. So thank you very much. Thank you once again for my presentations.
Thank you so much, Shantanu sir. It was such an interactive presentation, and the visuals and the animations that you have used, like the content is king and the context is queen. That animation was too interactive, and actually the informations that you have given regarding the creation of Orchid IDs, how that is important, that all should be kept connected for a researcher's life, and how the market analysis, bridging corporates with research and funding agencies, all the different informations that are required as a researcher to increase their visibility was very, very much important.
Thank you.
uh, thank you so much. Despite of your so much busy schedule, you came, and definitely as you need to leave, we will get back to you if we get any of the questions.
Sure.
So definitely
Sure.
we will get in touch with you.
Certainly.
uh,
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sriparna.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite our guest speaker, Sabine. She is founder of SciencePod, which is a content solution providing portal, to deliver her talk on the importance of content marketing and what all kind of solutions they are providing. So Sabine is a media entrepreneur, science communicator, journalist, and editor with a very keen interest in using technology to deliver improved editorial solutions and a vast international experience working across Europe and US. She has worked previously with even the Science Nature and editorial at different Springer Nature and Strategic Pharma, Intelligence Publishing House, Windor, and which is now Informer. She speaks French, English, German, and little Spanish as well. So very interactive. Thank you, Sabine. Over to you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to present to all of you this afternoon. It's a real pleasure to try and share the experience that we as a company SciencePod have had in telling the stories coming out of the research labs. And I'm going to share as many examples as possible just to give you an idea about how it's possible to bring science out of the silo and to make sure that people out there who need to understand what's coming out of the labs actually understand it, even if they're not expert. So that's why we're creating a teaser digital story. So why is it so important to tell the stories coming out of research? Primarily, it's because a lot of people would want or need to use some of the findings, either professional scientists or it's also relevant when funders make decisions. There's a lot of reason why it's important that the research finding go out there in the community. And the problem to do that, the biggest challenge that people have is that we're all competing for our audience attention. Especially in a lockdown situation, the only way that we are engaging with our audience is through digital, through a virtual event like this one, but also through any form of publication you may provide on digital. So in an era where open science is becoming slowly the norm, it's even more important to communicate in that way. It's because the old-fashioned way of communicating through paper-based content, through events-based, is turning into a more digital-based communication. And we're also very much moving away from the idea that an author, a scientist, is attached to a particular publication. And as it happens with the rise of open access, it is the author themselves that become the brand and the person that you need to push in front of many other people's eyes and capture their attention. There's also a big drive, from funders and from research institutions, and also possibly from the librarian division, to make sure that the content that their own scientists and the scientists they're funding are actually telling the rest of the world what it is that they've done with the funding that they've received. I mean, the accountability is a really important trend. Now, clearly, there are recipes to increase the impact of published research. And before I give you those recipes and share my own experience, I wanted to show you what kind of impact you can expect to have with the kind of digital story we create. So we've seen from the experience of our own customers, so we typically would create those digital stories for science publishers, for research funders, for industry heavily involved in research and development, and for institutions, research institutions themselves. And when you manage to attach a little story that summarizes the research, you can expect the number of downloads to be 3 times higher. Based on feedback from our own customers, which are typically science publishers, we also expect that if you manage to attach a digital story, so it could be a news story, it could be a podcast, it could be a video interview, it could be an infographic, then possibly the study citation could go up twofold. And for those people who take the time to distribute those digital stories widely on social media network, like the previous speakers was suggesting, then potentially the number of study download could be multiplied by 5. So these are anecdotal evidence-based data. So please, it's not peer-reviewed, but just bear that in mind, that it increases impact. And why does it matter even more now? to make sure that it is the results of research that are distributed online. It's because, as you've all experienced it during the lockdown, there's an increased level of fake news and misinformation traveling on the internet. And there has been some studies that show that even fake news and misinformation travel way faster than any kind of validated information. You know, it's a level of for instance, on Twitter, the study that was done showed that a typical fake news would reach about 100,000 people, whereas anything based on evidence would reach up to 1,000 people. So, you know, it's very hard to compare, but it doesn't mean we should give up. And I think we all have a responsibility in sharing evidence-based research findings, and just you know, of Springer Nature said that not only has it increased the traffic on their website, but they also have had an increase in interest in other scientific disciplines such as astronomy and things like that. So it's really interesting that the curiosity that the wider public may have for science might have increased. Anyway, so the solution to yeah, the solution to address these sort of issue is to tell the story of what's behind your research. So we have two ways of doing it ourselves. We've initially been creating stories by putting together teams of professional science and medical writers together with editors and proofreaders. So we're literally operating in the cloud in the same way that the traditional publisher would operate. And that's because my background, as Sriparna was saying, is also in the science publishing world. But then we realized that this was all fine and dandy, and it's very well to deliver magazine-style content in that way. But sometimes it doesn't do justice to every author of science, of academic research out there, because not everyone will have the time, the resources to invest in this kind of content. So we said, okay, let's go and look into AI and see what natural language processing can help us do. So at the end of my presentation, I will show you the kind of summaries that we can create by machine today in 2020 using you know, algorithms that take a research paper and turn it into a summary together with contextual information such as keywords, lay definition of the most technical term, and so on. Anyway, so there was a lot of discussion in the previous talk on the importance of content marketing. And now I'm going to present to you the mechanics of content marketing. And if you see this pyramid, it all starts with a strategy. And when you establish your strategy, you need to define who it is that you're trying to reach, and also for what purpose. Are you trying to educate your audience? Are you trying to just inform them? Or are you trying to just sell them something, you promote an idea, promote a concept? Once you've decided your strategy, you define a message. And on the basis of that message, you can create multiple versions of that message expressed in the form of a social media tweet, post, in the form of an interview, in the form of a white paper, in the form of a blog post. There's many different type of formats you can use to convey your message. That's the content part. And as you can see on this diagram, it's the widest part of the diagram because it's the foundation of your content marketing activity. The next stage after that is to distribute through social media, video channels, in the same way that this webinar is being broadcast on Facebook and YouTube. It's the distribution channel to make sure that as many people as possible see and hear what you have to say, which ultimately would lead to engagement. This will only lead to effective engagement if the content that you've created in the first place, so the way you've told the story about the research, is engaging enough. And I cannot underline enough the importance of the quality of how you tell your story. And that's why we call upon professional science journalists, not just any writer, not just a PhD student who's keen to write. It's fine, you know, they can do a job, but they're not going to be able to do a job that's as engaging as what a professional science journalist would be able to do. So this is the, again, the basic principle of how we work. We typically, again, start from one message that our client wants to communicate. We rely heavily on a published paper as the source of information to shape that message. It could be clinical papers as well. It could be any technical report, anything that's complicated. We just love it, because what we do, we put together these teams of science writers and editors. They read it, understand it, digest it, and then they produce a podcast interview with the author, an infographic that captures the entire findings of their single paper, a blog post that, you know, explain what's behind the discovery, or sometimes just simply a press release. And then those items, those digital stories, are to be distributed through the relevant channels. So, you know, we need to distinguish the how we tell the story from how we distribute and where we distribute. So I think the previous speaker gave you a lot of hints as to, you know, how you could distribute yourself. Everybody can be their own publishers today. So you have a real advantage, you know, operating today in that you can push your own story through those channels. So in order to facilitate the delivery of content, what we've done is we've created a workflow combined with an authoring tool that connects our client to our community of science writers and editors, and they can work together collaboratively in the cloud. So that saves a lot of time and effort. So that typically one of our editors can commission twice as much content to the teams that they have working in the virtual world than when they were previously working, you know, by email, by telephone. It was very time inefficient. So we've basically optimized the editorial process for the delivery of those digital stories. So I'm going to show you some of the samples of the stories that we've been able to deliver, and, you know, how far we have pushed this. So this is a typical story that we got from a publisher, Springer Nature's division APJ, and the paper itself was turned into a 300-word story that was published on the publisher's news page. But it happened that we created that story on our platform. So that's how the chain of event happened. You can see the orange arrows there. And ultimately, reaches out to 7,000 journalists globally. So we are really creating the story and then distributing it to an audience that's able to then cover the story through, you know, third-party websites. So this is how we function. It originates from a research paper, and then it becomes essentially a news story. We've had many success stories of that kind. You know, this is from the Royal Society of Chemistry in London, and we took one of their stories on antibacterial property of some of the nanostructure found in animals such as geckos and cicadas. So the bit that we did was this 500-word summary. And then again, we distributed through our partner, and it got picked up by a journalist from the Times. We don't just operate in text, and that's really important, because nowadays some people like to watch things, some people like to read things. Everybody's different. So you need to cater for as wide an audience as possible. So sometimes we just take a single paper and we turn it into a single picture. And then we always give the reference so that, you know, people understand that this is proper science that's been published and so on. We also work in industry, again, taking some of their scientific innovation data and then turning it into infographics. So we operate with anyone who has done some research work of a kind and wants to promote it and share it. So this is another example of a guidance on how to do surgery during COVID. And the author gave us an interview, which we recorded and edited, but we also did a paper version of that interview. So again, any multimedia, and this is another example where we have a podcast. So I also wanted to put a little note on language. This is an example where we took a historical paper by Max Planck, which was written in French at the time, and our client wanted it to be the story to be told in Chinese. So it's very important that people are addressed in the language that they prefer. As you can hear from my accent, English is not my mother tongue. Obviously, I'm from France, but the important thing is that we can operate in any language. You need to be able to target people in all the multiple language that you think your audience is going to speak. And I know in India, you're very sensitive to language because there's also regional cultural identity associated with languages. And I think it's very important that you're able to tell the story in as many languages as possible. So now these are the people we currently work with. They're basically science publishers for half of them. And then we've started working with industry, the likes of Thermo Fisher, Medtronic, but also in India, we have a wonderful collaboration with the Global Development Network, which is headquartered in New Delhi. And we are very proud to have this collaboration. Now, I talked to you about AI, and I just wanted to give you a flavor and a sample of what we can do nowadays based on your research paper. So the reason for harnessing AI is that we can do it at scale. Pretty much any scientist could have their AI produced summary. And you could decide, okay, we'll publish it as it is, but the machine is not yet fully conversant with language, not as good as a human writer, but it's way more advanced than it ever was before. So you may decide to associate a human editor to improve what the machine is doing. Anyway, there's another reason for using AI to summarize research is because you can now embed the summaries into the metadata of the research paper. This means that when indexing company come around, they will have access to your AI generated summary. And that means there is a higher chance of discovering that research. So this is the whole chain of events as I see it, but I'm running out of time, so I won't spend too much time on this. So we are going from research paper to AI summary, which gives you a lot of access into what's going on in research in a very short, concise manner. And then on the basis of those AI summaries, you could potentially create man-made, professionally delivered content just to showcase the most interesting of all the work that you do. So we're really at the cutting edge of these natural language processing summarization. We have a formal collaboration with a university in France called Avignon University, where they have a natural language processing expert. And what's different about our summaries compared to everything else out there, there's a lot of people claiming to do summarization. A lot of the case, all they're giving you is bullet point list of key facts, which is fine, if you're doing a PhD. But if you're a professional, you need a bit more than just a list of key facts. We also keep very much, we've developed specifically a kind of summary that's slightly different from a straight summary called a highlight, where we go to the most important information. So who did the work? What did they find? Where did they publish? When did they publish? And how did they find those summaries, those key findings? And of course, we give context. So this is a sample summary that we've created, what the machine has created. So we took a sample open access paper from Hindawi, and we attached the DOI so that it can be related to the original paper. What the machine does is automatically extract the most important keywords. it automatically spells out the acronyms which are specific to that discipline, and then it automatically extracts the most meaningful lay definition of technical terms. So that way, someone who's not an expert in that particular field can still access the information. And then I'm going to show you the second part, which is automatically generated by the machine, is the summary itself. And if you can read on my screen, I hope you can read it. You can see there are full sentences. It reads like proper language, and it's nice to read. And finally, for those people who are too busy to read even the summary, we've made it even simpler, and we've got this highlight outlining, the author of the work, where did they publish and when, what they found, how they went about it, and the future of the work. I don't know if you can see that on such a small screen, but I hope you can find some sample on our website. Anyway, so in an era where the resources we know already are going to be very constrained next year, it's very important that scholarly content is optimized. And one of the ways to do that is to make it more discoverable, make it more available through AI summaries, because they enhance the number of people who may have access to the original research. So I'll be delighted to answer any question you may have. I don't know if we have time, but otherwise you can email us at editor@sciencepod.net.
Thank you, Sabine, so much for sharing such useful insights about SciencePod. It's really great to know how SciencePod is providing the content solution, and it's in so many formats, in multimedia and in so many languages as well. So it's really very exciting to know how even scientific research is getting benefited by platform like SciencePod, and by using content marketing to enhance their visibility. And of course, the AI powered summarizer, that is a very new and innovative thing that something researchers must look into for having much more understanding. So yeah, thank you very much. And we will be taking the questions. Yes, after all the speakers that we have in our panelists, we go through them, and we will open our chat box for the question and answer session. So thank you very much once again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite Dr. Rama Patnaik ma'am. She's our next panelist. Dr. Rama Patnaik ma'am has a doctoral degree in library and information science from the Andhra University of Vishakhapatnam, and master's and bachelor's degree in library and information science from Andhra University. Her thesis is on marketing of library and information services in Indian library. Present trends and future perspectives was an excellent thesis by School of Information Sciences, Michigan University in 2002. She has been with IIM Bangalore for more than 11 years now, and before joining IIM Bangalore, she was with two leading national law school libraries. She is consultant and a reviewer of the online courses on avoiding plagiarism and many other platforms. So IIM Bangalore, under her guidance, uses extensive use of technology to manage its connection and disseminate service to its academic community. Today, she will be talking on some of her personal experience with the content marketing and how it helped in research visibility. So over to you, Rama ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me to this webinars.
Rama ma'am, please just unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, good evening to all of you, and I'm grateful to Balani Infotech and Dr. Sriparna for giving me an opportunity to participate in this webinar. As I said, as you said, I'll be talking mostly on the experience that I have in marketing the scholarly content or any type of content that is useful for researchers. And promoting their use, and some of the efforts which I will just share the screenshots using the applications and platforms. Let me share my screen. I hope the screen is visible now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I'll be speaking only on the scholarly content that is useful for researchers, or maybe some apps and the platforms. Uh, but the mode of scholarly communication prior to the digital, the culture of discoverability and marketing all started with the advent of digital content. But if you look at these channels of scholarly communication, which were formal or informal, how they have evolved, and over a period of time, it is now constantly going into the digital world. I think this chart which I shared is from one of the doctoral thesis published by Paul Kudlow, who is also the architect of Trend MD, one of the tools which actually helps to discover the related content while searching in journal platforms. So if you look at what content has to be marketed or shared, it all depends on, as Santanu has said, is on the context, and also how we actually try to project it through our multiple channels. And these channels are already extensively described by both the former speakers, and I will not touch much upon it, but the context which I look at, especially, uh, the content marketing is actually based on three perspectives, which I have mentioned here. First is the design management or the choice of the platform. So what choices are available to you, and what choices can best be made available to the researchers of your institute. So I will touch upon some of the platforms that we basically use it. And also we look at the pathways that are adopted to discover the content by the user community, whether it is through web, internet, or library implemented platform, or all internet channels. And how you are going to quantify the impact of your marketing efforts. That also is the resulting experience, whether it is the page views, downloads, or any other methodology of finding the finding the impact, I think, which is of course measurable. So these are some of the things, the quadrant that I have drawn here. So if you look at how your marketing efforts are resulting in, or you are able to quantify your efforts or measure the impact, it is through citation, or you undertake the bibliometric study, the H index. And if you are looking at the count or analytics, it is the page views or PDF downloads, the altmetrics, which are non-traditional impact solutions, and also the article sharing sites and the various academic identities that are available, whether it is Orchid ID or Researcher ID or LinkedIn. So whichever profiles the researchers adopt, is one of the channels through which the impact could be measured. So in consumer world, we often see that you come across while you are browsing any news sites, or all, you come across like you may like to purchase this. I think there are two sites which actually take the analytics and project it, like in the same is the case with Amazon, where you will get like, so people who bought this also bought that, and you may like this. So these are all I think there are two web channels which actually focus on your browsing your browsing sessions. There's outbrain.com and I think TRC Taboola. When you are browsing through any of the app, I think these throw out some of the consumer items that you might be interested and tempted to purchase. So, but we are talking about an academic world where we given the kind of resources that you subscribe and the amount of information that is available on web or through library subscribed databases, it becomes very, very difficult on part of researchers to actually begin any kind of research, look for the topics, what is trending in research, how to identify journals, how to identify specific data sets for the research. So if my topic of interest, if some of the scholarly content is thrown to me, then that actually begins my journey of the research. So given all these choices that libraries may have, as I was just going by this site, that the first thing what any researcher would like to discover is on the library website. I think this is the old stalwart, where every time you try to, design a website, you have to see that how best it is being put to use. I think in our experience, we have seen our library website has gone 100, how many, iterations based on the feedback that we get on the website, that it keeps on constantly changing what needs to be focused. And this, given that it is a public platform, and then you have to also keep in mind that it is only not only the researchers, but you are catering to a multiple categories of users who would be coming to website for various reasons. So there is a limitation of how much you can project on the library website, except for a macroscopic view of what journal articles are published by your faculty, what books are published by your faculty. So given all that, I think there is a limitation on how best you can use your library website to expand the visibility of the content. As I said, that IIM Bangalore subscribes to almost more than 105 databases. We have purchased proprietary data sets, which cost into lakhs and lakhs of rupees, and we have about maybe more than 1 lakh of ebooks. So given all this content, and even if during orientation, we have the challenge of telling the users where to start from. So we need to adapt. We thought of identifying the tools that would help us to highlight or expand the visibility of the content, which could be useful to our users. Since there are 3 categories of users, where the serious researchers, doctoral students, and students who also do end-term project, they also need some kind of research assistance for submitting their projects. So with all these users keeping in mind, we had to adopt different techniques of reaching out to them. Not only the kind of platforms or software applications that we subscribe to, we also do a lot of outreach, face-to-face, and other efforts, which actually complementary to what we have. Actually, these tools help us to expand not only on their own, but we do take these literacy sessions and workshops, webinars, and we invite a small group of doctoral scholars for evaluating the viability of any tool or any application that might help them in the research. We create a lot of web links also and publish bulletins, because you have to take out the latest content or what is actually trending or on what research topics they are working on. We just get a whim of what information they ask through the queries, and we keep that in mind, and somewhat that an invisible kind of profiling happens with the kind of queries that we receive, and based on that we try to publish the bulletins, the indexing and abstracting service based on a lot of content that is drawn from the aggregators and journal packages. We are not much into the social media because it is very difficult to manage. We found that it's very difficult to manage, but we use proprietary, social media tools, a kind of social media tools, especially the blog and the chat service and other in synchronous channels, which help us to reach or interact with our users. We extensively promote the usage of personal reference manager, be it Mendeley or any of the proprietary tools, Jotero. And we are now experimenting with some analytic based recommended tools that I will share it shortly in the following slides. So we actually have implemented the summon discovery service. This is not, it took almost 6 months for us to customize our discovery service with various tools that are available within the discovery. If you look at the screen here, we on the right side of my screen, you see a Lean Library, a pop-up which is appearing here at Lean Library. It's a get access. This is one of the tools which help the users to also get articles from Google Scholar when they are off campus, because when they are not on the IP range, most of the Google Scholar articles which are linked through open URL link resolver go undiscoverable if you are out of the campus IP range. And here if you see that we have implemented analytic based tool which comes with Summons Discovery, which is a proprietary product. Is called BS Recommender. Actually, BS Recommender tracks from thousands of the publisher sites anonymously what actually users are reading. And then when you search any term here, the BS Recommender actually gets you the related articles. If you click on this, what is there on the related articles, you will find a list of articles which are relevant to this. I just gave the keyword content marketing. It has given me these hits. And then if you look at the first hit, it shows you the Web of Science citations and the Scopus citation for this particular paper. And you can see also the related article. So this is actually powered by that recommender, and it is based on the link resolver usage, and they are the platform and content neutral. The usage is generated through the discovery systems, AI services, and publishers, or any other source where the link, where it leads to the full text linker through the link resolver. So, and we also implemented a kind of thesaurus when you search for the keyword, because it gets this the related terminology for content marketing. If I say content marketing, I can go to the thesaurus and see what are the other related terms through which I can search. And I can also filter out the type of information on the left panel from where I can actually take the content, whether it is a web resource or journal article on the or on the as a technical report, a transcript. So the filtering process happens on the left side of the panel. But if you look at the search here, I think it is powered by both thesaurus, related articles, and citation. And if you are accessing it outside the campus, then you have the Lean library, another proprietary product which prompts you to get access if this particular article is not indexed here, because obviously the summon or the discovery service what we are using indexes the content that we subscribe to. So if we have deliberately kept out most of the open access articles in the indexing, because we have masked them. They are discoverable anyway by Google Scholar. So this gets you the authentic open source article if you go through the Lean library, if this open access article is not indexed here. So this is one of the way which actually empowers the researchers to do a very methodical retrieval of the content that he or she looks at. So this took almost, as I said, almost 3 months for us to arrive at this kind of feature integration of applications and features for this particular discovery service. Coming to the social media sites, I think during the lockdown, there was a lot of demand for COVID-related information, how it is affecting the various industrial sectors, or what are the journal articles or early research published on COVID, because this is a kind of disease where much of the evidence data or authentic data was not available for anyone to know. So as and when the research was getting published or the earlier research was getting demolished and a newer research was coming, I think people wanted to keep track of it in their research, and how, of course, the education sector also got affected. So what we did is we started a blog immediately after the lockdown, trying to extract information on all the COVID-related subject, whether it is article published on the disease as such, or whether it is the statistics, or whether it is the industries or the sectors which were affected not only in India or worldwide. So this blog became very popular, and I think on its initial launch we found at least more than 100 people subscribing to it. Now we have a lot of views of the blog related information. The COVID related information which was published in the blog. And there was a time when we saw that each of the journal publisher had a separate section on the COVID related information. So to pull all that together, we had actually did a mass mailing. Then we published this as a blog, as a blog post, that if you look at Springer Nature, then we have given the link where the researchers can find all COVID related information when they go to the Springer site, or when they go to the Wiley or Sage. So this kind of tracking, what we did during the lockdown for the COVID period, was viewed so many times, even in the blog, because the blog is available on public domain. But if you click on the links, obviously the full text will not be visible, only abstract level information will be visible from the publisher sites, because we happen to be on the IP range. But these are some of the efforts which actually helped us to, if you look at the context related digital content visibility, I think this is one of the things which really helped the researchers to keep track with either the industry related information or COVID related research information. And through our so many newsletters and bulletins, what we do every month is we publish the top 10 journals, and in that particular journal the top 3 articles that are downloaded most number of times. So every month, whenever a newsletter is published, we just track the top used journals and top used articles. And these had so many views that, even if the link will not work, then we used to get queries that how to open the link, though we have given the DOIs. So in the subsequent newsletters, we started giving the remote access links, on-campus link and off-campus link. This is one of the efforts which was appreciated by the community, that at least what are the most widely read journals or journal articles for a specific month. And as I said, we have purchased a lot of data sets, and these proprietary data sets, panel unit level data, which was extensively used by our doctoral research and doctoral research students and also the faculty. We never had at one place where every information pertaining to its profile, the software or hardware requirement, how to download the data, what are the copyright restrictions on it. I think all the information are provided in this particular guide. And this is widely used by the doctoral students to actually locate and discover the data sets that we have, currently on an ownership basis. So this is updated regularly. And this is one of the sites which I think took a lot of effort from our staff to put everything at one place. We are also now trying to use the Dataverse, where all this proprietary software, proprietary content or the data should be visible. As of now, for the full text data, we are using an internal server through which they have to register, and the data sets are are made available for researchers based on certain terms and conditions, and also the copyright information. So once we have the data servers application, I think users need not depend on us. They can register, sign on the copyright declaration, and start using the data sets. So this is one of the economic data sets, the profile, and what is the economic census, how it is actually compiled, and what is the guide to access it, and the copyright information, of course, which is very useful. So in our effort of the expanding the visibility of the content, I think these are the activities that we undertake. As I said, not only the digital platforms, but we have the institutional repository, which is, I think we also track the analytics, Google Analytics of this repository, which is, I think almost every month we have some 10 to 15 article requests, though we don't have the preprints for majority of it. One of the experiences what I have come across in IMB is all the faculty have their own academic identities through. They have their own website also. They are subscribing to the Mendeley or Seed or Researcher ID. They are in LinkedIn, academia, and we found that mostly they are preferring these sites rather to give a preprint to the institutional repository, because the institutional repository, I think that takes another topic as to what are the shortcomings of having a digital institutional repository and not giving the kind of experience that these academic identities actually instantly give. One of the things is you can actually immediately expose your research to a wide network of users who are already registered for these sites. But what we impress upon to the researcher is all these articles and all are fine, but if you look at long-term archival value and preservation efforts, I think if you give a copy to the library, like I think when I come across the former faculty who have done a lot of research before 1990s, they were actually looking for their research projects and which were all published in print. I think we got all of them digitized and archived safely, though the data what they might have collected is not available. But I think one of the advantages I wanted to appeal to the researchers that, you know, these article sharing sites and all, they are prone to changes and you have to keep track and you have to update it regularly, though they give you instantly how much of your publication got citations, reads, downloads, page views and all. DSpace too, so, I mean, the institutional repository to an extent give the downloads and all, but they archive and, you know, keep updating your research productivity and also for a long duration. So you don't have to take care of the file formats and all that. The library takes care. I think this is one of the roles which are unacknowledged by the research community at the effort that we put in for digital institutional repository archiving the content. Yeah, as you know, we started also giving this indexing and abstracting bulletins as well, because on the topic or keywords that are given to us, I think nowadays for any latest topic, our staff is being asked to you know, create an indexing and abstracting service from the journal articles. And in the past, we also had this author workshop and, you know, trying to, you know, invite the editors and trying to say that what kind of articles and what kind of research is being accepted for publications. And we also had a data management workshop where we have included all doctoral students and impressed upon going through the, you know, importance of archiving the research data, which might be useful for them as well, not only to, you know, there are some misconceptions which are attached to these data management services, which are extended by library. By having these workshops, I think most of the you know, misconceptions can be cleared. We also undertook an extensive bibliometric study right from the establishment of the institution, and we thought that we will continue to do this process regularly. Why we have to, you know, convince the academic community to have an academic identity is, if you look at any of the citation databases, and if you have published with variation in your names, I think all your citations will get scattered. So the importance of having a you know, Orchid or researcher ID is you can have a single identity irrespective of the way you have rendered your name in the article, but all your articles, published articles, can be, you know, tracked in one ID. That is what we came across as while we were undertaking a bibliometric study, that if there is a variation in the name, I think the citation gets scattered and we had to adapt to that. And we also have the IRINS, which is an initiative of InfLibNet, where, you know, all the research articles, the citations, and it has also got an API where it captures the latest citations of the journal articles. And then this is a very good initiative. I think most of the central funded university libraries are already a part of this project by InfLibNet. So these are some of the things that we do, and we do an extensive monitoring of virtual footfalls. We publish newsletters, web bulletins, and we put a lot of effort in the, you know, applications that are used to expand the visibility of the content, be it a discovery service, a journal finder, a lean library. I think it takes a lot of effort from the staff to actually go back and forth and evaluate what is, you know, expected from the end user experience, and accordingly we try to change the interface. So these are some of the efforts. I think we still have a long way to go, and we wanted to start these data management services and also you know, be a part of the research process, whether it is collaborations or conference alerts, or also, you know, getting information on what funders are looking for, what kind of research. So there are proprietary softwares, but there is a lot of information available on the web which can be pulled together and provided as an alerting service. So that's it from me, and thank you for giving me an opportunity. I'm open to any questions at the end of the session.
Thank you so much, Rama ma'am, for giving this useful information from the IIM library. The efforts that are being done by the IIMB is commendable. The off-campus and on-campus access of the most downloadable articles, and then the how summon has been customized for the need of researchers, how a particular blog can reach up to so many readers. So these are very useful insights that any researcher should take in point. And of course, the Orchid ID is so important, as well as Shantanu sir emphasized on this particular point. So here we have a bit change in our schedule. Lata ma'am was next, but right now she is in some other panelist meeting. So I would like to invite our next panelist, Dr. Pramod. Uh, Dr. Pramod Dalvi sir. So right now, sir, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yes. So right now we have heard all of the perspective regarding in terms of libraries. So how important right now is content marketing for in terms of industry or the corporates who are involved into research? Dr. Pramod sir will be speaking on that. He's currently working as a technical mentor to the technocrats in Sudarshan Chemical, Pune. He's involved in many of the proposal writing and many of the research that is Sudarshan Chemical is doing. So over to you, Pramod sir. We would like to have a perspective of industrial point of view for content marketing.
Thank you, Dr. Sriparna, for giving me this opportunity and making a part of this great platform. Though I'm not from the library point of view, I'm fortunate to have, huge experience in industry. For last 25 years, I'm just into industrial research. And post my postdoc, I had an opportunity to work for industrial R&Ds within the India and outside the India. So I have quite a bit of experience in that. So on that perspective, I would like to just touch upon one of the points Dr. Shantanu said is about the industrial collaborations with the research institute. And one of the points which Rama madam was just explaining in terms of extracting the information, and one of the points he was taking is how to find out the research problem, how to look for it. They have ample informations which has been provided to all the participants here in terms of tools available, the way they can do that kind of things. I'm talking in a different sense in that sense. When we look at the industrial perspective, I'm coming from the industry. One of the industries is the pigment industry, where I'm working for the Sudarshan. Now, what has happened is Sudarshan is one of the top industries within the India in terms of pigment manufacturing, and they're opting for a third position globally. So if you see, to shortly mention, we are looking for R&D capabilities, which are exceptional R&D capabilities. So when the question comes how to find out the right research topic, I think there is a gap which we can definitely fill in. That is between the industry and academia, which is stocked largely on large platforms. One of the ways what can be done is the institutes can approach industries and look for what are the problems they are looking for. I will give an example. Pigment is a very, very niche market. If you look on the prima facie, it looks a simple chemistry, not as hard as pharma. Important. But when you actually work on that, you need a lot of skills like crystal engineering, nanotechnology, material science, organic chemistry. A lot of perspective comes out. So in real sense, when we look for expertise in this area, we are really running short of it. So what I see is there is a huge scope in terms of getting the problems and serving and catering the markets. So what one can do is definitely you can approach the industries and find out what are they looking for. I will give an example. Recently we approached ICER and we ourselves look into what are the research skills their teams have and which of the research skills we can use it for our purpose. Because in industry what happens is it's a quite competitive market. You cannot afford to have academic research. You are hard pressed for industrial research and coming output within a 3 months or 6 month time. While in academic, but still there are problems which needs to be handled, which are long-term problems. These are the problems where institute can approach the industries and look for what are they looking for. For example, if you see a chemistry of intermediates in pigments, if the process is changed, if for one intermediate there are two processes, then definitely it has a large impact in terms of the rheology, shared gloss, which is required in paint industry and ink industry. So only when you come to know, when you work for such problems and industry. So I see there is ample scope in spite of having a library information available. So you can go a reverse way. You can approach the industry, look for what are the problems they are looking for their customers, and they can go back to and search from the library and the information which our two colleagues mentioned about to get into the problem. I think that is one of the very easiest way to go into that. Not only that, because it will have a direct impact on the society. So what happens is most of our research in academics goes into kind of academics and it remains there. It has a huge value, which is not actually commercialized. I think there is a huge scope on that scale. So second point is when you go to the conferences and when you present the conferences, that time you have ample time and ample opportunity to look for the problems, not only for look for the problems, but what is actually industrialists are presenting. There itself you can get a lot of information. So these are the content which you can enrich other than library, or the reverse way, getting the problems and then going back to library and the informations to extract from there. So I think these are the quite big points which all the researchers can look at, because I have myself worked on industrial project as well as academics projects, and I have seen how academics projects are run for industry and how they are working. I think there is a huge scope to improve on that. So based on this content, for us, content marketing is like, our customer. Our marketing, technical marketing goes to customer, look for what our customers are looking for. We come back and that is transformed into the R&D and we start working on that. For academics, we industries are the customers where they can come over and look for what are the problems we are facing for, or what are the society is looking for, which kind of solutions. I think this is one of the ways we can increase your content in terms of the doing the research in a different way. So I think that's my view on that. So thanks to all of you for giving me this opportunity. This is just 2 points which I wanted to mention during this session. And thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Pramod sir. I can relate with your topic, what you said, because I was working with gold nanoparticles and how that gold nanoparticles can be used for stained glasses. And then there were people in my lab who were working on natural pigments from beetroot, from marigold. So how that can be used as a natural drug. So actually the academic research many a time remain with the academics only. So it's very much important to get in touch with the industries, and many times actually I feel academicians are a bit shy to ask with the industries whether they are looking for that kind of options and not. But yes, definitely that should be an option. Okay, so we have Rama ma'am with us. Thank you, Rama ma'am. Thank you for joining us back. And we have our next panelist, Dr. Lata Suresh ma'am. Sorry. Lata Suresh ma'am, Head of Knowledge Management from IICA. She's a multi-dimensional person who is an author, poet, singer, professional, and a motivational speaker as well, who is currently holding a position as the Head of Knowledge and Resource Center at IICA, which is under the aegis of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. She has a professional experience of more than 25 years in her portfolio. She is recipient of Commonwealth Professional Fellowship Award from British Council of University of Birmingham, UK in the year 2014. She has represented in all professional activities internationally, nationally, regionally, as well as locally. She has also integrated advances in information technology to support the academic program. She has created, trained, and developed e-library portals using open sources. As an author, she has in her credit 5 books with renowned publishers and more than 35 papers. So her next book title is Miracles Do Happen with Positive Thinking. So surely, ma'am, I'm looking forward towards it. So welcome, Lata ma'am, and please, over to you.
Thank you so much. And I feel fortunate to be here on this platform because I am working as a librarian knowledge professional and also working closely with the corporates, the corporate world. So I will be pitching both the entities together, and how we as a librarians or information professionals can work together with the publishers and build a good content for our users, because we both are working for the benefit of the users. So it is said that before there was a Google, there were librarians. So much have been talked about content marketing by the panelists. So, but I will be focusing more on this publication part and how we can collaborate with each other. Uh, so, see, I feel very much bad about it that our library curriculum does not explain much regarding this content marketing. We get to know about this aspect only when we join our profession. Updating people's perceptions of libraries as merely building full of books, perhaps even more thorny for the efforts, is that it's not clear exactly what libraries should aim for as they evolve in meeting such changing community needs. This is one of the biggest challenge for libraries today. Uh, uh, some research shows that Americans are divided on the question of how books should be treated at the library. 24% support the idea of moving books and stack to make way for more community and tech-oriented spaces, while 31% says that library should not move the books. The marketing people live by the mantra that you can't be all things to all the people, but that's really what a library does. Modern libraries are book repositories, resource center, and gathering spaces, doing everything from carving maker spaces for hobbyists and hosting equipments and rental programs so that community members can borrow items like anything they want, the hand tools or getting the co-working spaces for the virtual workers. So those friends who have joined as professional recently, I would like to inform that content marketing is a strategic marketing approach that focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. Customers, who are the customers? The users are our customers. Instead of pitching the product or services, we provide truly relevant and useful content to our prospects and users or the customers to help them to get the reliable information at their doorsteps. So no matter what the company or organization you are working, whether it is educational or else, or if you are selling a product, or if you are selling specific services like publishing, having company content is the key to growing brand visibility. And the most prominent during this pandemic, that everything is going online, I think this content curation has provided a decent and specific need, and it has been catered the needs of the users. It is not only the key to begin being seen online, but also help attract the right prospect back to the organization's website. See, content is not as simple as just publishing something and then a ton of leads will coming pilling in. In fact, being the most effective at your efforts requires your organization to focus heavily on content research, as many of some of our panelists has already discussed about this content research, something marketing departments in labs, but our teams should also have the part in helping with the content research process. As a librarians, we should help them doing this and assisting them to create the content. What content research exactly means, why it matters for the publishing department, and some steps on how you can approach content research effectively has already been shared, as I said, by our London friends. I will just share some quick content marketing strategies. According to Forrester, the average person consumes 11.4 pieces of content before making a purchasing decision. 74% of companies indicate content marketing is increasing their marketing teams, lead quality and quantity via Curata. 95% of B2B buyers considered content as trustworthy when evaluating a company and its offering. 75% of consumers expect a consistent experience wherever they engage. Maybe it is a website, a social media platform, mobile, or in person. Content can feed all those channels. So, as I said, I would focus more on this publishing industry. So, I would request all the book publishers, if they are there, they should focus primarily on the sale of physical and digital objects. Sometimes they don't really think about using content to attract the readers, nor there is any planning for ongoing direct relationship, etc. So, I request the librarians to come up with their ideas and help the publishers to create such contents that can really relate our users with the publishing. uh, there are expectations, but as you know, our PR and social media efforts need to be deployed. uh, and as I have seen, sir, that in some cases the publishers have appointed librarians to give better content marketing ideas, and they hire librarian to set up and manage their content library. And I stand by the advice: strive to manage your content library like a librarian. If you have a mission filter, a standardized vocabulary, and a life cycle policies, you are miles ahead of the average marketing team. And when it comes to promoting the vast variety of library activities and resources on social media, many libraries across the world has experimented with content for each platform, as you have already seen in some of the presentations, from Instagram to Pinterest to Snapchat, stealing goals for each one and choosing to focus on those that prove to be most effective. We have to be on all the platforms. Therefore, content marketing makes a lot of sense for librarians that want to attract patrons or the users. And marketing library collections and services is much more nuanced than letting people know about the great books and fun events at the library. So last but not least, content is key to getting people that would buy your product or your services to your company site. But if your company or organization does not write towards the audience, you may have traffic that is worthless. So marketing and the teams, they should work together to start building their organization's buyer persona and map out the buying cycle. The one thing I want you to avoid is doubling down on prevailing models without trying at least some of what I have outlined. I know there are risks that challenge how we have organized in past centuries. So that's what I would like to say, because most of the things have already been shared by my panelists, my friends. So over to you, Sripanna.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Like how targeted customer and how the content strategy is very much important, and
Very
releasing
much
your
important.
content in multiple channels whenever you are targeting the multiple and different kind of targets, that is very much required. And how a profile should be created for connection with the end users in terms of publication industry as well. So that is very much important insight that you have shared with us. I thank all our panelists, our guest speaker, and our keynote speaker for taking time from their so much busy schedule and sharing their valuable thoughts with us. So for the today's session, I will now request my team to open the chat box to have some of the questions if our participants want to have a discussion with the panelists, or for the some questions that they want to ask regarding content marketing to our guest speaker. So now we are open for the question and answer section. So participants, those who have their questions, they can ask in the chat box. We would love to have some questions for our panelists. Yeah, I request our participants to ask their question over the chat box so that we can pass those questions to our panelists and our speakers. I guess the way all of the talks are being delivered, everybody is pretty much clear about the content marketing and how they should do their content strategy and everything. So we are waiting for some of the questions. Okay, we have a question from CU Raj. What are the tools used to identify the top used journal and articles?
Acha, this is question addressed to me, I guess.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, actually, if you look at the JCR, I think there is the authentic, though there is a lot of criticism, you can find what are the top ranked journals. But in your area of research, if you are looking at, then I think how we do is we track the usage, counter usage through Sushi profile, and we identify which of the journals are widely used by the users. That is how we identify. I think all librarians must be having their admin account. And if you create a profile in your admin account, you can have I think you need to read more on how the Sushi profile can be integrated into your analytics tool, because we use a library analytical tool to capture all usage, any transaction that happens, including the footfalls also, virtual footfalls. We use one proprietary product by SpringShare called Insight. So for I think every purchase, whether it is an ebook, journal or whatever, our staff will go to the librarian's account, track the usage, and wherever they are Sushi compliant, we harvest the usage. And that is how we are able to track the journals. And within the journal, we say which are the top ranked journal articles which were downloaded for most of the time. So that is how we identify the journals and articles. But if you're looking at from the impacts perspective or also ranking, I think there are various sources which publish the highly impacted journals and the ranks as per the disciplines. JCR being one of the most widely used one by the libraries. I hope I have answered this question.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for the answer. Sabine, are you there? Hello, Sabine from SciencePod. I guess she left. So, ma'am, would you like to give answer us on what is exactly digital marketing?
So that is, we have a product. I don't want to come on to that. Digital marketing is whatever you want to promote or market in a digital, the digital content or the digital platform. So that is how I look at it. Like if I'm looking at how many advertisements are coming on Facebook, or how many advertisements are coming on any of those social networking sites. So what content I market in the digital platform, I look at from that perspective, like whether it is the digital content or whether it is the digital platform.
I guess, Vishal, your question is being answered, and you got your answer from Rama ma'am. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for the session. So